Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Elevate Life YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jerla Prevalon. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. On this show, we focus on the stories of women, their traumas, their joy, their pain. And what I love to hear are the stories of how we come on the other side, how we have utilized God, therapy, and whatever resources that God has allowed us to have in to help us in the healing journey, to help us come on the other side. We are continuing our series called Starting Over Again. Basically, after you've gone through loss upon loss, what are the strategies? What are the things that you have used to help you start over again? I think those stories are amazing stories. They inspire us. They help us continue on the journey so that we won't give up. So your story matters because it helps me continue on my journey. So today we have Reverend Dr. Naima Lett again. She was a guest on the show a little while ago, but she's back here today to talk a little bit about the loss that she's experienced and that she has seen in Hollywood. So stay tuned, and she will be right back to talk to us a little bit about that. Okay, as promised, we have with us Reverend Dr. Naima Lett, a very good friend of mine. In the previous episode I had with her, I shared a little bit about how we met and how our journeys intersected and how God allowed us to do ministry together, to show up for one another. She has showed up for me several occasions regarding my children, my own ministry. I remember the first advice she gave me was, if it's not there, the thing that I want to do, if it's not there for me to create it. And that advice has been leading me. It has been an anchor. All the creative
Yes.
stuff that I'm doing is in part because of Dr. Naima Lett,
Oh,
because
wow.
she gave me permission to go ahead and create. And that's what I've been doing. So, Naima, thank you for joining us again
Yes.
today. I want to hear a little bit, if you have any updates or anything you want to share with our audience. But today we're going to talk about Hollywood, your first career, I
Yes.
think, right? Your first career
Uh-huh.
as
Yeah.
an actress.
Yeah. So thank you for having me back. And it's always good to hang with you. I love what
Yes.
absolutely love what you're doing. And yeah, just, Godspeed, Godspeed. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
I would say the theater, the acting world, performing arts. So theater, music, dance, were all my first love languages. And I'm a storyteller. And so
Yes.
I think that um, my parents recognized very early on that I was a little dramatic child, and loved storytelling. And so they, the parents, when you see that your children are artistic in any way and are creative, you want to encourage that, right?
I
Because these
love
are
that.
gifts, they're gifts, right? and
Yeah.
and each one of us is given gifts, and so my parents weren't afraid to nurture those, and they put me in
And you have helped me
acting
with that.
classes. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you have helped me that with my own children as they're
Mm.
in the arts and want to model and everything. And you have helped me kind of slow down. You taught me to breathe. You're like, relax, okay? Your children will be fine. Relax. you know. So I appreciate the what your parents did for you, you have done for me in helping
Yes.
me have good conversations with my children who are trying to be in the arts as well.
Yeah, so the biggest conflict that we all face is, particularly as parents, but even as artists, the conflict is we have entered into a profession that is not stable. And every parent wants stability for our children. Every
Yes.
person, even if you're a risk taker, every person still desires some stability, because people who are risk takers take those risks, those calculated risks based on their place of stability. So we have knowingly entered into a career that is unstable. and
Whew.
and that's really scary, right? Like for most people, that's because just it's like, well, what, where are you going to get your food? How are you going to live? How are you going to have a roof over your head? And that anxiety and stress um, is the exact opposite of what's needed to create. When we are stressed out and worried and
Wow.
concerned, those things make creativity crumble. And so it's
Mm.
it's it's literally like you are trying to bring your best foot forward and allow your creativity to flourish
Whew.
and to be artistic. And at the same time, because the living situations are all over the place, it's a dynamic that is a constant stressor. It's a
Whew.
constant Yeah, it's a constant tumultuous battle. So a lot of
That's
artists,
so it's
go ahead.
so against how society is set up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the way society is set up, especially in America, we're set up to go to school, get an education, go to college, and once you go to college, get an internship, and that internship is going to produce 9 to 5, some stable job.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like our the way we succeed. The way we succeed is what we show for. We show a stable job,
Mm-hmm.
good money,
Mm-hmm.
buying a house, and we show all these things to show that we have made it. And what you're saying is, to enter into the arts, we're entering into a place of instability,
That's
right?
right.
You're the
Absolutely.
artist,
Yep.
a space of instability.
Mm-hmm.
Society is creating these stable structures, and the
Right.
artists are entering into these unstable structures. Whew.
Absolutely unstable. And at the same time, I think that for our generation, you are absolutely correct, right? Like, so our parents and our grandparents, like, my dad worked as a professor, as a teacher, for 30, 35 years, right? 40
Yeah.
years, retired, and is living off of his retirement. um, our generation, same thing, like you said, we go to college, you get the job, you get the life, and then you provide for the next generation. I think the generations after us don't necessarily follow that flow, because
No.
they've looked at it and said the structures are crumpling, right? So
Right.
whereas before you might work for 35 years and get a retirement, you get a pension, companies are saying, nah, we're not going to do that no more.
Right. Right.
So there's this breakdown of sorts. but um
Like the
but yeah.
rewards for this generation, they're like, money is not a big enough reward for me.
No, I want to do what I love. I want to do what I love. Yeah. But that's the thing, though. See, here's and I say artists are some of the most faith-filled people that I know,
Mm,
because I chose, when I looked at what I wanted to do on a day-to-day basis, I knew I loved the theater. I knew I loved acting and performing, and I bet on myself. I said,
mm.
I don't want to, one, I know my work ethic and I know my drive. So I said, I I want to wake up doing what I love every single day.
Wow.
So I'm going to work in order to give myself the privilege to do my art, right?
Mm.
So I knew I had other skills, and if you are listening, people,
Right.
as an artist, you really do have to have a stable job, or some way of bringing in income. I won't say stable. You have to have some way of bringing in income that supports you having a roof over your head unless you have somebody else that is providing for you. But
Right.
you have to be able to have a way to bring in enough income that your base needs are met, so that then
Right.
you can create, right? But I think there's, because of social media and reality TV, people
Whew.
think that, they're literally like they're just gonna launch out and
You just
have
have
a
to
have a
show up and
platinum.
you're gonna make it big.
You're gonna have a platinum single, and and all of a sudden, you on a Renaissance tour. Like, it don't work
Right.
like that. It doesn't work like that. So that's where there's a cognitive dissonance, right? There's a breakdown
Yeah.
that occurs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
But
so
I
what I would
also
go
hear,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I also hear like the way of life of an artist is almost like what Jesus, how Jesus is calling us to live, right? In a sense,
You can say
with
that.
trusting,
Hmm.
um, not necessarily trusting in the structures of the world, but
Hmm.
really following this rhythm that is nuanced, you
Hmm.
know, that is
Hmm.
not necessarily this rigid, way of life, but very nuanced, and to follow the rhythm of where God is taking you. So I feel like the way of the artist, there's a lot of similarities to spiritual growth and spiritual living, right? There's
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
rhythm there, there's a nuance there, Naima, that
Yeah.
I'm like, spiritually it's almost like how God is calling us to live.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Make that connection. Make that connection. So it
Right.
is, and it is. But here's the thing: it's all personality. It's all based on personality as well. Meaning,
Right.
there are going to be some. I actually happen to like stability, which is why I've always been creating, and I will always have four or five, different things going on. Right, just
Hmm.
because I grew up in Georgia. I lived in the
Ooh.
same house from the time that I was born till I was 18. So I tend to like I like having a roof over my head. I don't
Oh
like
yeah.
trying to figure out where am I going to sleep tonight, right? Like
I
that
think that's
that's
most of
too.
us though, right?
Well, I don't know. I've met some artists that are just free spirits, and they flit and flat, and and they're okay. If they're someplace for 3 months, they're good. And another, I mean, it's similar
Oof.
to someone who's grown up in the military and they're used to moving every 2 years.
uh
They're used to it. So once
that
they're
gives
in a
me
place.
anxiety, just hearing of it, like every
You know
three
what I mean?
months
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
like, okay, we're
I
gonna
mean,
go here.
but some people, some are like, some are, it just depends on how we're wired. But I tend to like to know, okay, I have a roof over my head, I have a place, where I can put on my clothes, I can eat, those types of things. And so it's just with great comfort. The thing though that I tell artists the most is find ways to take care of your emotional health, right?
Mm.
Because there's a quote, and I wish I could find who said it, but it's brilliant, and it skirts around the industry all the time, and it says the most sensitive people have gone into the rejection business, right?
Mm.
And so the truth
Oof.
of the matter is there are not enough jobs for everyone that wants to work, and so
Whew.
you're going to get exponentially more no's than you're going to get yeses. And so you, as a sensitive soul, you're constantly being rejected, you're constantly experiencing loss, you're constantly being told that you're not good enough, right? So
Wow.
in my case, it's I mean, you hear it all, right? So either you're not black enough or you're not white enough, you're not,
Right.
you're not big enough, you're not small enough, you're not, I mean, it's a business that is really strongly couched
Mm.
in our preferences,
Yeah.
and it's the only one that I know where there's no HR department saying you can't put that on the paper. You can't, like, the breakdown will say blonde, fat,
Wow.
spicy, right? And you go, that you can't. that can't be a job description, right? Like,
Right.
you're not supposed to say, you're not supposed to say fat. Like, what are y'all doing, right? Like, what is going on?
Wow.
But that's the job description, right? Like,
That is
that's the job
wild.
description.
That is
But you
wild.
understand what I mean? So it's based on, and what can you possibly do about your physical characteristics, right? So no wonder we have so many people who are doing all of these different things to change like who
Right.
they are, because it's
Right.
like, well, if it's not perceived that I'm the hot ticket, then maybe I do need to get my boobs done, maybe I do need to
Right.
straighten my hair, maybe I do need to bleach my skin, maybe I do, it's all of this.
Right. Right.
So it's like, I have to know
I'm
who I
just hearing
am.
a lot of pain. Like
I mean, it's
that quote you
tumultuous.
just quoted, that quote you just quoted, the most sensitive people have gone into the rejection
Rejection
business. And I'm
business,
like, as a
yeah.
therapist, and I'm like, oh, Lord Jesus, I'm just hearing a lot of pain from rejection upon rejection. It's almost like you have this calling, but in order to pursue this calling, you have to fight every single day. You have to
Yeah.
hear insults and the degradation of your body. Like it's very fleshly and all of that, and that's loss upon loss, pain upon pain. Like
Yeah.
my goodness.
But it's for the joy of being able to get what's in your soul out, right? So
Yeah.
if you ask, and I've spent so many times, and at this point, I shepherd artists and walk with people in the calling, and at the end of the day, an artist would do all of it and do it all over again for the chance to
Wow.
share the stories and impact lives. I know a lot of
Wow.
people think that the main reason why an artist is creating is for fame and fortune, and I'm not saying that there aren't some that are rolling like that, and there are. But the
Right.
majority of artists, if you ask them why they do what they do, is that they want to make a difference in this world. And so
Mm,
there's something about being able to tell the story, similar to how the majority of the Bible is narrative, right? Like
right.
it's one big love story, right? And
Right.
there's a part of us that just wants to be able to tell the stories, and we want to see the transformation in people's lives. And
Right.
um
Right.
and so you weather through all of that, like, and people will say, don't give up, don't give up. So you weather through
Right.
all of that, and every day you get up, pressing forward to,
Right.
put one foot in front of the other for the chance to tell the stories that will impact people's lives. And
Y-
that's, that's
Yeah.
a huge motivator.
That's awesome. You said earlier that the artists that you've seen, including yourself, are some of the most faithful people. And
Hmm.
for many
Faith
Christians,
filled, faith
faith
filled.
filled
Hmm.
people, for many Christians that are looking into Hollywood, looking into entertainers and all of that, we would not make the connection that God is in these spaces, that God would have anything to do with these people, entertainers, actresses, singers, models, whatever the case may be, right? That God is not there. As a pastor in Hollywood, I would love to hear what you think about that. What have you seen, Naima?
It's just not true, right? God is everywhere, and God is here as well as He is in every other industry that we are
Mm,
in, right? Like, God is the great creator, and He made us creative kids, and then He gave some of us gifts and sensitivities that we can use those gifts to help people work through their things, right? Like, if
mm,
I believe that every story, whether that's causing us to laugh or cry and everything in between, it's helping us work out life, right? And
yeah.
we are conduits of allowing people to vicariously enjoy the stories to help us work out life.
Mm,
But the truth is, God is here. God is here. God is with us. His kids are everywhere. He always, we're everywhere,
that's
and
beautiful.
it's a it's a created war
Mm.
within our Christian dynamic that helps us to ostracize people. So when we say, as Christians, we
Wow.
hate Hollywood, then we've created an enemy that is very visual, that everybody sees and then can point a finger at. And we go, that's the enemy. Now let's attack.
Mm.
However, if we're being completely honest,
Right.
uh, the system of Hollywood was created over 100 years ago, in the same way that all of the systems in our wonderful America was created, right? These systems that are built with a lot of people on the bottom trickling up to the top that are making the most money.
Right.
But in this system, it's not a situation where, you can look at that and go, that is inherently evil, right? The
Right.
studio system was built from our Jewish brothers that had migrated over from Eastern Europe, and they
Wow.
had faith. Hollywood itself, the city, before it became a part of Los Angeles, was created by a Christian woman and her husband who invited their friends to come from Ohio to join the New Jerusalem. They gave free land to
Wow.
churches. Yeah, they gave free land to churches. They, they had all of the prohibitions that any good
Yes.
Christian
Teach
would say,
us.
right?
Teach
Like
us,
it's,
Naima.
but so it's not inherently bad. Now,
Right.
what has happened is along the way, Christians said, we're going to take our ball and leave the playground. And
Mm.
when you take the light away, what else do you have left? You can't take
Wow.
the light away, then turn and look at it and go, oh, this is bad. This is really
Mm.
bad. That's our enemy.
Mm.
We hate you.
Right. Right.
It's like, well, where you been? Where you been
Where
these
are
last
you?
hundred? Where you been these last 100 years? What happened? Where are
Where are
you?
you?
So, what we would love, and my message to all of my brothers and sisters who follow Jesus, what we would love is your prayers and support. What we would love is
Yes.
your blessing. What we would love
Mm.
is, instead of the vitriol and the hate and the seeing us as an enemy, that you actually see us as who we are, because you have brothers and sisters that are here. We're making our living. We are following God in our callings, just
Yeah.
like you are, right? And I can't do what you do, but you can't do what I do.
That's right. That's right.
These are specific gifts, and
That's
not
right.
everybody can do it.
Not
And then
everybody can do it because I can't sing. I can't act.
but you know what I'm saying? It's like, and it's one of those things. So the last part of this, and I know we got to get ready to go, but the last part of this that I do want to encourage is the reason why, because I know that there are Christians that will say, um, all the time we see these anti-Christian messages. And I go, well, somewhere along the way, if a writer wrote something that was against the church, it was probably because they were hurt by the church. They
Mm.
were, again, sensitive person, rejected. So
Wow.
if you at your church, if you are a church leader and you railed on artists, you rejected artists, you despised artists, you kicked artists out because of their lifestyle or whatever the case may be, mind
Yeah.
you, I'm like, in ministry, I've seen all kinds of things.
Right. I know you
I've
have.
seen I've seen people living all kinds of ways, right? And so I'm like,
Right.
we don't kick, we're not kicking out our senior pastors for having all these different affairs, but hating on this artist
Right.
for. I digress.
Right.
But at the end, I'm
Tell
like,
us. Speak
if
the
you
truth.
if you have, as a church, not treated your artists well, and you've hurt your artists, and then they go on to be a writer in Hollywood and they write about that hurt, then we can't turn around and say how bad they are. You're
Right.
probably the reason why they have written what they've written, because
Right.
people write about those things that are coming up, that's the most present. So
Absolutely.
there's unprocessed hurt, and they're working it out.
Right. Right.
They are working it out.
Absolutely.
So whenever I see anything that has an overtly, a character who is Christian, who is really like the villain. I
Right.
know, I
You
know
know
that
there's a hurt.
there somewhere along the way that writer was hurt,
Yep.
right? That writer was hurt. And so
Yep. Yep.
what we
Yep.
need to do in that case is pray for the writer. And many times what I'll do, if I'm able to meet the person or know the person, I will apologize. I've done a lot of apologizing for pastors
Wow.
all over the country and all over the world, to artists,
Wow.
for the way that they've been treated by the church.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
beautiful. That's
yeah.
beautiful for you to stand as a surrogate, to of the many pastors, many churches, many
Mm,
church members who have hurt the artist in Hollywood. You
mm,
shared earlier, again, um, these sensitive people entering into a field of rejection. What advice and recommendation would you give them to keep their mental health stable, and for healing? What does healing look like for people who are constantly losing,
yeah.
constantly being rejected? What does that look like?
Well, it's first and foremost knowing who you are and knowing whose you are.
Mm,
It's, when we accept that we are not our job, meaning
mm,
the rejection that comes from a no, you didn't get this part. That's just a job, right?
right,
And as long as we're asking someone else for a job, they have the right to say yes or no.
right.
So I encourage artists to always create on your own, as well
Yeah.
as asking other people for jobs. But really, it boils down to each one of us knowing who we are and knowing that as a whole person, I am more than my ability to work. Because again,
Mm,
we can all work. Like, there's no one that
yeah.
says that
Yeah.
you have to be a series regular on a network show and get an Emmy award, right? Like
Right. Right.
like that
Right.
that might be the dream, that might be the goal, but that doesn't mean you can't work, right? Like, you
Right.
can always work. So, we have to have some peace about the fact that, I am more, my whole human being. I'm more than my
Yes.
job. And if someone says
That's
no
right.
to me getting a part, that should not crumple my world, because that's just
Mhm.
a job. That's
Right.
just a job. That's not who I am. So
It's
I
not the
highly encourage.
fullness of your being. Yeah.
No, 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 no. It's not all of me. It's a part of
Yeah.
me. And I love to work, but I can work. I can keep myself working while I'm doing the other things, right?
Right.
And
Right.
in terms of just, mental health, it's really about having other parts of our lives that we enjoy. We can't just be in front of a camera trying to, become the next YouTube, sensation, right? Like,
Right. Right.
figure out what you like to do in life. Figure out, like, what are your joys? What are your, like, we all have
Right.
other parts of life, and that feed into our mental well-being. And I'm like,
Right.
explore those things, because when we are joyous and that spills over, by the time you sit down for an
Yeah.
audition, all of that joy is infectious. It's
Yeah.
infectious. And
Absolutely.
people, when we're on the set, you're working 12, you're on the set with somebody for 12 hours. People do not want to be on set with someone who is riddled with, like, all of
Right.
those things. That, so it's like, you've
Right.
I've been
Right.
I've I've been on both sides of the camera, so I know when someone comes in for an audition and they are at peace with the world.
Yeah.
You want to be with that person for 12
You want to
hours,
get closer. Yeah.
versus someone coming in and you feel the desperation of, I got to get this job, I got to get this job. Like, if you go into an interview, any interview, whether it be an
Yeah.
audition or whether it be an interview for some other gig, you go into any interview with that kind of desperation, people can sense it. And
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
always just want to have a peace about you.
That's so good. That's so good. When I speak with clients, especially clients that are dealing with identity issues, one
Mhm.
of the things we often talk about is just that whatever your identity, whatever it is that you're trying to figure out about your identity. It's just one
Hmm.
aspect of you. It's not the
Yeah,
fullness of you,
that's right.
and it's important to really know, um like, what is the foundation? Where do you stand? Who, on whose
Hmm.
shoulders you stand to help you build and develop this identity,
Yeah.
because it's
Hmm.
it's important. That is very
Absolutely.
important, because I've seen. And so, what you just talked about is some of the work that we do in therapy, just
Hmm.
helping people come to a place of embracing their identity, their God-given identity, and not
Hmm.
just putting all your eggs into one thing, one aspect of you. This is just one
Yeah,
small aspect of you, and there's many, many. I
that's right.
w- it's we are almost out of time, but I
Okay.
wanted to give you some space for you to share a little bit about the strike that's going on. Every
Yeah.
video I've seen, I follow a lot of actors and artists, and I even heard you talk a little bit about the strike and what's happening. Why don't you
Yeah.
share in a couple of minutes to our audience what's going
Yeah.
on and what's the challenge there,
Yeah.
for entertainers?
Absolutely. So every 3 to 4 years, the contracts come due, and in this particular case, the contract negotiations broke down between the producers and the writers union and the producers and the actors union. And so when that breakdown happened, then the unions commission strikes, and so the industry has been striking. Now, what that means for everyday artists is when there's a strike, there's nobody working. So
Mm,
from the actor all the way down to the person that does catering services, over to the people
wow.
that do sets, to the people that do lighting, to the people that bring the flowers. Like
Right.
the entire industry shut down. So people are really hurting because there's no income flowing.
Right.
And However, the strike is chosen because for the writers union as well as the actors union, they're saying we can't keep going and not being paid for our work. So with the streaming services that have come up in the last, that are now really thriving in the last few years,
Mhm.
because it wasn't included in the other contracts,
Oof.
producers have just been selling the rights to shows. So Netflix, like you may have watched, any plethora of shows now, series on Netflix. Artists are not receiving any residuals from that.
I know, I saw a check. One artist was showing like 15 cents. I'm like, "What? That's
So can you
crazy."
imagine? So artists are like, we have to strike because we can't continue to have people making all of this money off of us and not sharing that income. But it's really hard because, as you know, the
Wow.
producers have more resources, and so they can just last longer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the
Exactly.
day, your prayers are absolutely welcome. And then I say contact the studios, people. If you are tired now of seeing the reality shows because your shows have not come back, because right now
Mhm.
they have not come back. If you are
Right.
absolutely tired of that, let go on social media, because every studio pays attention to their social
Right.
media, and you
Right.
go on social media and you let them know, listen, give the actors what they want, give the writers what they want. We want our
Right.
shows back. Do what you got to do. Go back to the negotiation table.
That's
Do what you got
right.
to do.
That's right.
And if millions of people did that, listen,
Yes.
those studios would be
They
back at the
would
table in a
listen.
heartbeat.
Yes, they would listen. They would
I'm like,
listen.
nothing against Survivor, but do we really need another season of Survivor? Like, like
Listen,
right
listen,
now, if you go on your TV right now,
listen.
all of your shows are
I
not there.
That is crazy. It was eye-opening for me when the actors started sharing their real life checks. And I'm
I
like,
am
no, this
so
can't be
glad.
right.
I am so glad. I have for years I have said these are the secrets that keep people fooled. I'm gonna tell you what, it was Viola Davis in her book, in her autobiography.
Yes.
She's the first actor that I knew that actually shared. Listen, guys, I was on a series network show, and I could not pay my rent. I could not pay for the car. I wasn't making enough
Yes.
money, because people think, oh, you're on,
Exactly.
you're
We see you every
we see you
night,
every and it's
You
like,
must be
it's
living large.
no, it's not like
Wow.
that. It's not like that.
Wow.
It's
Yeah, her
yeah.
book was eye-opening for me,
Mhm.
regarding the life of an actor,
Mhm. Yeah.
and the work they have to put in, and the amount of money they make at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And we're seeing these people on big screens, and
Mhm.
every week if they have a series show, and you're getting paid what?
Because
I was floored.
everybody thinks it's Denzel Washington, 20 million a picture, so y'all must be good. And it's like, yeah, that's a hand that's 1%. So
Right.
1% of artists make more than $10,000 a year.
That's crazy.
1%.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna end
Okay.
with
I
that because you know, I need y'all to do what
Yeah.
Naima just told y'all to do. We need to
Yeah.
support our actors. There's a clip. If you go on Naima's Instagram page, there's a clip where she talks about how entertainers help us. I think we forget
Yeah.
that they serve a purpose in
Yeah.
our own healing. We can
Mhm.
remember the song that was
Yeah.
playing when we were a teenager going through hard times. We can
Mhm.
remember the movies. We can recite certain
Yeah.
lines in different movies. All
Yeah.
of those people were actors, entertainers, singers, performers,
Mhm.
um, people who helped us in life, people who
That's
helped us in
right.
our healing journeys.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we need to support them. They need our help. They need us to raise our voices so we
Mhm.
can say they matter too and we need them. Without
Thank
them,
you.
life would be so dreary without entertainers. And I'm so
Absolutely.
grateful for the work that you do, Naima, the acting work you've done in the past. And let me tell y'all, I met her the first time I actually met her. She was doing a show. Okay. Yeah. So I had to come back and talk about the trauma,
Yeah.
pain, and healing and all of that. And I had to bring her back because I was going through and she was doing a show, and me and my sister went to see her show in New Jersey, and I fell in love with her work. And so
Oh,
we
thank
need to
you.
support the work that entertainers do. I thank you so much,
Oh,
Naima,
thank
for coming
you.
up and for sharing. I hope the Christian circles can listen to this interview and be not just informed, but change their minds about how we view entertainers in Hollywood and what our place is in Hollywood. You are
Mhm.
currently pastoring in Hollywood, and I love that. I love everything you
Yeah.
share. Um, if you want a good message, you need to listen to her Easter sermon. Okay, that was just fire. Okay. Everything that
Thank you.
Naima does,
I
y'all need to
appreciate it.
follow and y'all need
Thank
to
you.
like and subscribe. She is spirit filled,
Thank you.
and she loves people and she loves supporting. She's so generous, and I love her for that. So
Thank
again,
you.
thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here today. You will be back because I have plans. I always have plans. Yeah, I keep my people around. I keep them close. But you will be
Yeah.
back, and I
Okay.
appreciate you for this time. And we will talk next time. So, for those of you who have watched, please share this podcast to others. Spread the news about what we're doing, talking about trauma and healing, because it's all around us, and we need to talk about it. So, till next time, I will see y'all then. Bye bye.
Bye.